Hey, Gravity Formers, it's Matt from Gravity Forms. I'd like to welcome you to day 1 of 2 of our No Code Needed event, celebrating all of the awesome things you can do with Gravity Forms in a no-code setting. These 2 days are jam-packed with awesome tips and tricks from the team at Rocket Genius, our certified developer products, and our expansive universe of Gravity Forms users. You'll learn some basics, some advanced stuff, and everything in between. So kick back and enjoy today's live stream, and please share this on social media. Oh, and before I forget, No Code Needed doesn't just apply to building awesome solutions with WordPress and Gravity Forms. This week, you can celebrate with 50% off our Black Friday sale. Head on over to gravityforms.com for your purchase of 50% off all licenses. But don't let me spoil the surprise for you. The best deal is our Elite license, which gets you every single add-on that we make and the new Gravity SMTP plugin. Gravity SMTP helps you deliver emails more effectively, efficiently, and securely. All 50% off now at gravityforms.com. Head on over to gravityforms.com for 50% off. No code needed. Hey, Morgan, welcome to the special, what I've been calling holiday event here at Gravity Forms. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's the No Code Needed event. If you're watching this, eating your turkey, or if you're watching it before Thanksgiving hits, don't forget, No Code Needed at gravityforms.com. Just go to the website, gravityforms.com. You can get our 50% off discount without having to enter a code. How about that? It's the magic of e-commerce, I guess, these days. Morgan, what do you do here at Gravity Forms? What's your day-to-day like?
I'm an engineer on the product team, so I write the code that makes Gravity Forms go.
And when we say, I want this feature, I want that feature, do we have you to thank for that?
Often, yeah. I kind of help gather the feedback from our users and from our certified developers and from our support team and from our leadership team. I help take all that feedback and figure out exactly what we're going to work on next and prioritize what bugs we're going to fix and all that stuff. So
I was just, before we hopped on, maybe an hour or so ago, we're in a shared Slack in a WordPress community called Post Status. And somebody was asking about a feature, and they had tagged me, and I was like, I'm going to have to do the old, sorry, we don't have that. Go to our feedback board. But you jumped in and did it for me. so thanks. So thanks for that.
Yeah. And just so people know, we really do pay attention to what feedback people submit on our roadmap, and we do use that to help make decisions about what to build next. So if there's something that you're really dying to have in here, I mean, I know we have a lot of features that people say, why on earth do you not do this? And it's because there's only so many hours in the day. But if there's stuff you want us to do, please let us know, and we'll take that into consideration.
Yeah, when I have real critical conversations with folks about features of Gravity Forms, or hey, you should do this add-on, you should have this integration, this should be in the core of Gravity Forms, it's easy for me to say, look, this is not a plugin that was just made yesterday. It's been around for 15 years. There's a lot of people that use this in many different edge cases. It's not easy for us to just, ChatGPT's here, let's just throw that in. It just doesn't work that way. That's the way that I sort of dumb it down when I'm having these conversations. How do you see it as an engineer? How do you critically think about that?
We kind of get bombarded from all sides with, why don't you have this feature? Why don't you have that feature? Wait, I reported this bug 6 months ago. Why haven't you fixed it? I just found this other bug. Why don't you fix that? I think we all feel a little overwhelmed sometimes by the amount of stuff that we could be doing and the amount of stuff we feel like we should be doing, and prioritizing it is really tricky. There's just, like you say, we've been around for 15 years. You would think by now we would have had time to build all the features we want, but no, there's so much. I mean, Gravity Forms does a lot, but there's so much more we can still do and so much more we want to do.
Yeah.
But we also try to be super careful about making sure that when we build new features, we do it carefully so that there's backwards compatibility, and that, you know, we give lots of time to test things so they work when we release the features. So I wish we could build stuff faster too. I wish we could do 10 times more than what we do, but at the end of the day, we are only human, and there's just a lot to do.
Yeah. I'm going to say something that I hope the rest of the team doesn't hear, but I've been I've been coding with Cursor lately, which is this fork of VS Code, and it has like chat, like a human readable chat system in it, right? So I think it integrates with Claude, but I can like throw words at it and it will make stuff for me. And it works until like I do something really not critical, but if I try to like do some like deeper functionality, like the whole thing breaks down and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just look at it and I go, please try again, until it fails again. And I was listening to a podcast the other day. This is just a bit of a tangent, but I was listening to a podcast the other day of somebody who's a true software engineer like yourself. And they're like, hey, I use Cursor, but you like, if it fails 2 or 3 times, just know it's never going to get it right because the LLM is not trained on it. All of that is to say, what's your take on like using AI for code? Do you use it? Do you use it as like a starting point, as like a junior developer to kind of help you? Do you not use it at all? What's your take on AI and coding?
I use it. I use it basically as a shortcut. Every once in a while I use it when I'm stuck on something, although usually it's not super helpful in those situations. I find it helpful for doing, oftentimes when I'm doing something kind of tedious that doesn't actually require a lot of knowledge, like writing documentation. It's really handy for that. Yeah. And sometimes I find it handy, like, you know, I can write the comments that I would normally write in code, and then the AI will often just write what it thinks I want. And 60% of the time it gets it mostly right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great tool. It's a nice time saver for knowledgeable engineers. I think for new engineers, well, my strength is in PHP and my weakness is in JavaScript. So a lot of times I'll be writing some code and like, I know exactly how I would do this in PHP, but I'm not quite sure how to do it in JavaScript. And AI gets me over the hump in those kinds of situations. So I think it can be a helpful tool. It is not a replacement for knowing how to code.
Yeah, no.
And I think back to like when I very first learned any sort of code in the 90s, and I was writing HTML, and I started out with Microsoft Front Page, and then I was using Dreamweaver, and those tools you pretend you're editing a Word document and it writes the code for you, and the code it writes is terrible.
Right.
All of these tools that write code without the human having to know code are great for doing some basic tasks. They're great when you're first getting started. But ultimately, if you're doing anything with code, at the end of the day, you need to learn code.
Yeah. Let's have a look at some code that humans wrote. I'll give you a chance to share your screen. And while Morgan's pulling up the screen to show off some of these cool Gravity Form things, don't forget, no code event right now. You're watching this. The code is already put into the shopping cart for you, gravityforms.com. Just go and purchase your license with the 50% off. Morgan, what do we have?
So in the past couple of weeks, we released Gravity Forms 2.9. And there's a new feature in 2.9 that I am super excited about, that I think a lot of our customers are going to be really excited about too. This has been a requested feature for a long time. And that is a new image choice field. So I'm going to show you how to use this field, and then I'll also show you how to make it look really nice on your site. So I'm just going to start with a blank form here. And you'll see in our list of fields over here, we have actually 2 new fields in 2.9. There's the multiple choice field and the image choice field. So today we're going to look at image choice. And let's see, who is your favorite astronaut? Oops. So if I click on this field and then I click on Edit Choices, here's where I can add images to these choices. So let's grab some pictures from the media library. You can either use existing images in your media library or you can upload new images. And I'm copying and pasting from the alt text so that you don't have to watch me fumble as I try to type all of these names. All right, so now we have our images uploaded to this image field so that people can see what they're choosing from as they make their choices. There are some settings on this field. So we've got this selections down that lets you choose whether you want users able to select one. So right now they can only select one astronaut, but we can change it so they can select multiple. Or you can select an exact number, so you have to have exactly 3 favorite astronauts, and then you'll get some text telling you that that's the case. Or you can select a range, and you can set a minimum and or a maximum on this field. So if you just want to say you have to pick a minimum of 2, you can put in 2 here, and then this will say select at least 2. Or you can say select no more than 2, or we can do, 2 to 4. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave this at 1 for now. There's also, we have a setting here. I know some people, when they see this kind of interface, they don't like having the label here. So we do have an option to hide that label, but we don't recommend using this. It's not good for accessibility. For some reason the images aren't loading on the page, or if you have a user who is vision impaired and can't see this, then they have no idea what they're picking. But that is an option if you like how it looks. So I'm going to save this form. And now I'm going to embed it. I'm going to make a new page for this. All right, so I'm going to embed this in the page. And I'm using a theme here that has a dark background. And you can't see the label. Here's the question, who's your favorite astronaut? And you just can't see it because we're on this dark background. But that's okay, because we have form styling that lets us really make a lot of changes to how this is going to look. So first of all, let me go here to the label styles, and I'm going to change the text color so it's white. And we can see that, so that's a good improvement. Let's go back up here. So we have some choices, so some styles for the image choice field. So right now it has this card appearance, which is what we're calling this white background. But we can also change that so that there's no card there, or we can change the shape, so we can go circles. So we've got some options here. I think I'm going to stick with the card background, but I like these circles. We can also change image size. So we can make them small, or we can make them really big. But I actually think with this theme and with these pictures, I think medium is the best way to go. So we've got this nice 3x3 thing happening. But I think we can still make this look better. So we can change the background of our inputs. So let's make that dark. And that's also going to impact the border, or I'm sorry, the background color of this card. But now we can't read the text again. So let's make that text white. And then let's make this accent color this kind of gold, this brown gold theme color, and we'll do the same thing for the border. Now we still have this button down here that looks blue, and that's kind of ugly, so we can use the theme color there. Now we're getting a notification that this color combination is not accessible, but I think if we make it black, that works. So that looks so much nicer than the default, I think. So let's publish this, and let's go look at the page. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. And when you select an option, you get this the check mark here and then the darker border, so it's really clear which one you've selected.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's without having to. Well, it's without having to write any code. How about that? This is the, the no-code event. There's no CSS code needed. When folks are building this, there was a question that I had for you, I think last week. The image choice fields are obviously highly requested and a welcomed addition to the latest update of Gravity Forms. I was working with something as an example. I was like, oh, let me build like an order form. Maybe somebody wants to buy a product, but here's the product. It's a blue t-shirt, it's a red t-shirt, and you make your choices there. Product stuff isn't in image choices yet, or maybe image choices aren't in the product field yet. I don't know which way you look at that, but I found a way to, I found a way with conditional logic where I would say, hey, like if this is a very simple thing, right? If it's a very simple form and you just have these three choices and there's not a lot of complexity to it, I did a thing with conditional logic where I said, if you pick this image, then load this, then load the product field with the price, and you can select the quantity and stuff like that. So there are workarounds that maybe folks can use if you have something very easy and straightforward, or if you're not seeing a feature here yet. I found with conditional logic and like connecting up some other stuff we have with Gravity Forms, you can make a lot of other things happen with this type of with image choices and the types of forms you can build.
Yeah, and we do know that products are one of the most common use cases for these kinds of image choice features. So that is something we will build soon.
Yeah. Quickly, just talk about Orbital while I have you on the call. Orbital is also now built into, well, I say built into, but you can clarify when you're in the form editor in the back end of WordPress. Orbital now loads there too.
Yes.
What does Orbital mean for, I get it for the end users. It allows us to do the fun no-code stuff that you did here. What does that mean for a developer watching this saying, oh, can I extend Orbital? Are there things a developer can do to extend what Orbital does?
Yes, and this is something we're going to continue building on. Orbital is built on what we're calling our form theme framework, which is basically a CS API where we have a lot of CSS variables, and by changing those CS variables, it's easy to make changes throughout an entire form theme and change your form styles. This is again something we're planning to expand as Gravity Forms continues to develop and as WordPress full site editing continues to develop. We're trying to follow a similar route that WordPress is doing with the theme.json file. So with theme.json, you can declare some CSS properties that then kind of get populated throughout your theme. And eventually our plan is to integrate pretty directly with theme.json so that, if in your theme.json style, if you say that your text color is white, we would just automatically make your text color white for your theme or for your forms without having to go mess with it in the Gutenberg editor like I just demoed.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of powerful stuff that's going to be happening with the theme framework, and eventually for developers who want to build and market their own themes, or for an agency who wants to be able to make form themes for their clients, that is something we're planning to do.
That's awesome. Maybe that'll be my next challenge with Cursor. I'll throw, here's what I'll do. I'll just dump the entire WordPress directory contents in there. I'll dump the entire Gravity Forms directory in there, and I'll just be like, hey, build me this extension of Orbital, and we'll see where that takes me. I'll just burn through my Claude credits or tokens, until I get the answer, which is what I've been doing in my spare time of building stuff. Morgan, this has been great. Thanks for hanging out today. Everybody watching this, obviously, gravityforms.com, no-code event. Get your 50% off today. Morgan, thanks. This was amazing. I learned a bunch of stuff, and I hope the audience did as well.
Thanks. My pleasure.
So for folks who don't know, what do you do in the WordPress world? What do you do in the Gravity Forms world? Let us know all things Sean in WordPress.
Yeah, so I've been in web development now for 28 years. I got into WordPress probably circa 2010. I do a few website rollouts where it's just install WordPress and do it, but by and large, I do a lot of systems built and kind of strung together with Gravity Forms for the interactivity, and then things like ACF for doing something with that data, and a lot of systems building where we just try to build a whole system with Gravity Forms being a part of that, to bring in the user data and control how it gets piped and extended out with plugins that are dedicated for Gravity Forms, and then build plenty of things too. And a lot of the stuff we do, or I do, is I use filters and actions inside of WordPress that allow you to extend out and affect what Gravity Forms can do, and then pre-populate it with data, or adjust the data and read something in and to affect what you're doing. And
take me back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Take me back to the early days of your development, if developing for WordPress. I love talking to developers because you're an interesting bunch. Sometimes developers are like, you know what? I'm going to build my own form. I'm not even going to use a plugin. I'm just going to build it all with my code and my way. But there's a certain level of like scalability when you use something like a Gravity Forms or any plugin really. How did that evolve? How did your development process and workflow evolve when you started to find plugins like Gravity Forms that sped that process up? Maybe you were punching the keys and writing your own code, and you found Gravity Forms. You're like, oh yeah, this makes total sense for me to use in this WordPress site and scale this. How did you frame that in your head as a developer?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first crossed across Gravity Forms like way over a decade ago, it was just a godsend. It was like, holy moly, look at this. So you can work out notifications and confirmations. You can drag and drop and mess with stuff. The other sort of add-ons that let you do things like put in e-commerce pieces or linking to creating custom post types. It was huge because all that stuff could now just be tasked off to the add-ons to be able to build stuff. So some of the things I've done will have the form, and it can factor in whether it's a logged in user or not and what their identity is. In one case, I shared the video of this. it would read in who the end user is and then see associated membership accounts with them and pre-populate that. So that way you then had a drop down of who was associated with you, which could come only by filtering because it then knew the relationship. But yeah, Gravity Forms was just massively different in building forms of my own. It was so easy to get something out of Gravity Forms.
Yeah, it's a certain level of like efficiencies that come with, you know, using these tools. Sure, anyone could probably just like code it themselves. Maybe even today's world of AI, though. Don't do that. Don't do that yet. Let's not trust it to the robots yet. But you know, there's this level of efficiency and the ability to have the add-on ecosystem that Gravity Forms has. But then for developer tools, I mean, it is still a very powerful plugin. You're going to show off some of that stuff right now. I'm going to invite you to share your screen, and we'll dive into some of the cool things that Sean is doing with Gravity Forms.
So this is one example of something somebody tapped me recently to build a plugin. And what their problem was is users were coming to the site from other places, and they were just trying to limit it down to English-speaking people and inside geography. So they had the geography figured out in sort of, you know, geofencing or limiting who can see the site, but they couldn't get it to the language. So they were getting a lot of non-English submissions, as a for instance. So this is a little plugin I built up that just does a language check. So when the page is visited by somebody speaking with an English set as their browser language, everything is as you'd expect it. Nothing peculiar. You see what you see. And then over here, let's reload this. I've got this one, which is the same form, but I've set my browser to Spanish. And what it does is it just sends you a different message instead of sending you the form. So that's all based on being able to sniff for the browser, for the user settings, and then it changes the output of your form. So instead of whatever your form may be, it hides all the particulars and just says not available. So it's there to achieve a marketing goal, but you may also want to use it as a way to sniff out robots or other basically bad actors who may have their language settings a little bit different as one of the cues to, similar to how the zero spam or the honeypot plugins work in Gravity Forms. It'd be that sort of way to be able to further qualify or box in who's using it. And a good example of how I'm pulling that all off, don't worry, in a production site, the plugin editor is not available, but and without getting too deep in the weeds of the code, Gravity Forms and Gravity Forms documentation is, and if you've got a Gravity Forms account, the support team will actually answer some questions if you're just running out of road on developer tools. But it's got all these sort of ways, and you can hook into the content and affect the content. So in this case, you can then run functions to affect what you're seeing, and you can get everything from before you render it to before you submit it to in the admin level, whether you're validating or saving settings. So it's hugely extensible, and that's the thing I really like about Gravity Forms is just how powerful it is and how much you can tap into almost every level of what the code is doing to get it to do something that serves you better.
And in this example, just to paint the picture for somebody who maybe has never cracked open a code editor before, what you're doing is creating your own sort of, we'll call it your own add-on. It's an independent plugin. You made it, and it sort of unlocks some of these extra features for not only for your client's specific needs, like test the browser, see what geolocation they're coming from. If they're coming from this location, show them this. If they're coming from that location, show them that. You're writing this code because it didn't exist in core Gravity Forms, but Gravity Forms is coded in such a way where it's easy for you to say, okay, well, I say easy, but it's easier for you to look at this stuff and go, okay, I can make a plugin that makes it behave a different way.
Exactly. And where this gets really powerful is if you can tie Gravity Forms into the existing data on your website. So for example, there are places where you say, okay, give me the list of categories, and that somehow works, that fills a different role in the Gravity Form, or give me a list of users, or give me a list of pages you see on the site. And then people can choose those, and then they can, you know, they can use that to create a better form for what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it allows you to probably punch into even more specific, like conditional logic. Like you can then compound against that. So you could say,
Oh yeah.
build your own little custom layer to how you approach a project with Gravity Forms, but then it still works with, conditional logic that is built into core Gravity Forms. So you can do a lot with your code and then unlocking it with the rest of Gravity Forms.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I demonstrated what a add-on or plugin would do, but you can put that stuff into the functions.php of your active theme. And then what you can do there is that can just not even have to be a full-fledged plugin. It can just be something that says, hang on, before the vanilla content comes out, affect it in this way and get it to do something different. Or as you said, conditional, make it react to where the user is and what they're doing.
Do you ever do anything with Gravity Forms webhooks, or do you? And if not, do you have like a favorite add-on that you like to use?
I do some stuff with webhooks, and I've seen some stuff out there. Like for example, I had one that way back. I got to dig forever to find it, but where it hooked into basically sending stuff to Twilio.
Oh yeah.
So on a submission, instead of doing the regular confirmation, it would instead pipe it to Twilio, and then Twilio, which does SMS and other messaging, would then take the message and run with it.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. And anything? Do you have a wish list or a thing you would love to have inside of Gravity Forms? If you could wave the magic wand, is there one thing you'd be like, I really want this in Gravity Forms?
Oh man, I mean they got so much, right? So
no roadblocks for you.
What's that?
No roadblocks for you on how.
Well, that's the thing is I can just code if I'm missing it, I can just code it.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not documentation.
Unfair advantage.
But I would say probably some way to get the API or somehow bring that sort of filtering and way to connect into data a little bit more front facing. Because there are ways you can name data sources and things like checkbox, but it'd be really nice to make that even a better handshake between the data you have. And then just people who don't even have to dig into the code could dig into Gravity Forms and say, I'm naming my products, or I'm naming my user base, or I'm naming my whatever is your data source, and then have that populated out. Like I said, there's already some of that in Gravity Forms. I'm just saying, keep going, right? Like more.
Keep enhancing. Yeah, keep enhancing that. Awesome stuff. Sean DeWolf, where can folks find you to say thanks?
I run Web321 with my wife and some staff, and it is at web321.co. We do web design and web maintenance.
Awesome stuff. Sean, thanks for hanging out today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Hey, Brandon, welcome to a special breakdown episode of, breakdown, of course, here on the Gravity Forms YouTube channel, special for this week of Black Friday. I'm excited to have you here on the show. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
You've been around since WordPress was invented. What is it that you're doing? What is it that you're doing with WordPress these days?
So I'm the lead engineer for PixelJar. It's a small web agency focused around WordPress. We build, basically the focus primarily is on membership sites, but we build custom plugins and themes for our clients. And we also have a WordPress product called AdSanity, which is an ad management platform for WordPress.
And what are you going to talk about today? What are you going to show us with your hands-on Gravity Forms stuff?
So I have two things. I'll probably spend most of the time on a travel booking form with a bunch of custom business logic that we built out for one of our customers. And I also have, on the AdSanity side, a e-commerce solution for booking ads on the site.
Curious if you have an opinion before we go into your hands-on stuff. If you can remember back to your early days of a WordPress entrepreneur and getting started in the space, I've always talked about Gravity Forms as this sort of great tool to level up. Like you can start with basic contact forms, right? And then eventually, you're starting your web design career. You're out there, you're meeting customers. Yeah, everybody needs a contact form. And then they say, oh, I need this MailChimp thing, or I need to get hooked into ConvertKit or something like that. But then as years progress, you start to find customers that are like, oh, Salesforce, HubSpot. Then we have all these add-ons, and you can kind of like level up your agency business because of the add-ons that Gravity Forms has. Talk to me about that, like leveling up and the tools that you use for WordPress. How does that make life a little bit easier for you as somebody who's a seasoned veteran these days? And can you kind of harken that back to when you were starting off early on in your career?
Yeah, I mean, Gravity Forms has been a plugin we've had in our tool belt literally since it came out. It's been a really solid plugin for us, and honestly, a platform. We've used it. I can't even count the number of times, either building, like you said, basic contact forms, or really this complex booking form is huge. But the add-ons, like, it always seems like there's one that we can use on pretty much every project, whether we're integrating with a CRM or integrating with a shopping cart, some sort of a Stripe integration, something like that. But yeah, like we have, as developers, we've taken advantage of all the hooks and filters that are available. And we've worked with Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics. Like, the list goes on and on from how we're able to take what's already there and customize it for whatever those needs are of our clients.
It's awesome stuff. Let's go into your hands-on. I'll invite you to share the screen on your side, little button below, and we'll get into some hands-on stuff that you do with Gravity Forms.
Okay, cool. So this is a local instance of the site, just for testing purposes. But ultimately, this is a travel booking site with tours that go all around the world. And the nice thing is, a lot of this content is managed with custom post types. So for our demo, we'll go into the Truly Korea and Japan one. And it's a 10-day tour with lots of different stops along the way. And if you hit the book now, it shows you all the available tours that are set up for this. And hitting book now gets us to our custom Gravity form. So it's essentially like a shopping cart. You're sort of picking the details of what you want to customize this trip. So up at the top here, this is all populated from the custom post type into the form. We use some of the filters to display that content, and it gives you sort of a running total of where you're at. Some of the fields, like this one, for example, some tours have land only ones, but some have land and air. So the radio buttons here are filtered in depending on what's available. We have some conditional fields that are pretty basic kind of stuff. But I'll go through and fill in most of this information. We can get the next step. We have pages in our form to kind of keep things concise and make sure you're not overwhelming, because this is a heavy process. So as we get to the next page, this optional tours is another custom post type that we're feeding in the data with different things that you can add that will customize the price of this tour. So different pricing for adults and childs on a lot of these things. So we can kind of go in there. We are setting this up so that the number of travelers here on the next page of this form, depending on what you put in here, you'll get that number of fields to actually enter in the details of each of the travelers. So we'll just put it to 3 here. And again, because we're calculating price of adults and children. That is something we have to separate out here. You can, on these tours, there's the ability to choose different types of rooms. So either a double, a twin, or a triple number of people in there. And depending on this, we actually scale out this the types of rooms for each room you want. We'll just have it in one for now, but there's some business logic under the hood for calculation of what each of these rooms costs, which we can kind of talk about in a little bit. And then some of these things don't affect price. They're just the ability to add on some extra days. So we won't go through that. We have some travel insurance. If you want it, it automatically gets calculated into the total price of the form. So we'll add that and hit to the next page. And so here you'll see, because I put in 3 passengers, that's what shows up here. So everybody has this triple room because that's the only kind of room I booked. But had I chosen, if I come back to this previous page and I chose 2 rooms and I do double on that one, you can see that we assign each of the passengers to a specific room, which helps for kind of booking and also calculations of price. So that's pretty neat. So I'll go through and fill this in. Okay, so once I've filled in detail, the calculations kind of happen. So it gives you a lot more detail about what you selected. So the number of adult travelers and child travelers. There's some business logic in this where if the child is not under 12, it will actually replace that as an adult because those are age limitations. But it breaks down the costs per adult and child for that, the optional tour. Because there's a triple room selected, you get a deduction. And the insurance is sort of calculated automatically here. This is the total cost, and then it calculates a deposit. So one thing that's interesting about this form is it doesn't make you pay the whole thing right now. It creates a calculation of the deposit based on what you've selected and goes through and you pay this amount, not the total cost. And once this form is submitted, it creates a custom post types for the invoice at the end. So you can come back in and check that out. Okay. And then we'll leave that. And so it submits and gives you the details of what you booked. That's your departure date. And then at the end, you can go into your login area and see the details of what your entry is. This is a custom post type, like I said, for an invoice that then the customer goes in and manages the communication offline after that's been paid.
That's awesome. And just to frame it for folks who are watching, like all the custom deposit calculations, all that stuff, that's all or maybe not, you'll tell me, is that all custom logic that you built, or were you using the formula fields to calculate that stuff, or did you just like bucket into your own like little custom plugin or add-on, if you will?
Yeah, so there's a lot of code actually that goes in behind the scenes. We started with the function to sort of calculate that, but it became like very complicated based on so many numbers of choices you made along the way that it wasn't possible to use that stuff built in. But yeah, we've used we use a bunch of custom code. There's one thing that's actually really neat is there's a snippet of code from Gravity Wiz that that allows us to change I think it's a select field in a list type field, so that when you're choosing or when you're entering the travelers, you're able to choose the room itself. That's a bit of snippet from what they have, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So it's I think the nice thing again with the add-on community, both from Gravity Forms itself as well as the community around it building plugins is really, again, that's like one of the strengths of this whole community in my mind is just everybody willing to kind of build up on the same platform and build great things.
Yeah, absolutely. You wanted to show us one more thing from your box of magic Gravity Form.
Yeah. So, like I said, AdSanity is a plugin we develop and sell commercially. So we tried to build it very lightweight. And so we didn't include any e-commerce in it just because that's, as you well know, it's a big can of worms, and doing that means a lot of maintenance. So we tell all of our customers to rely on Gravity Forms for this. And we've built out a workflow for them to create an e-commerce form that then will take what the input is and submit it as an ad itself. So, so in the back end here of AdSanity, we've a couple ads already in place. But if someone comes up to the front end and they want to create an ad, they can come in here and choose different ad sizes that we support, and then choose a file. That work, and then obviously fill in and pay for all of that. Again, it's the ease of use of having Stripe really built into here is this really handy for our users to really put together quickly. And once this is submitted, we use the post fields for the end of this, and we end up with an AdSanity ad here that is set to draft mode, so it's not obviously going live right away. But clicking in, we use some of the mapping of the Gravity Forms meta fields. There's no custom code in this one. This is just straight up Gravity Forms, setting the featured image and the size there. And if I'm ready, I can just add it to a group and it will go live on my website.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the cut the custom fields and creating content. Not just because I work here at Gravity Forms, but because I actually use it on one of my other sites about podcasting, where people can fill out an interview and it just pre-populates my blog post draft, and it just saves me like a zillion hours because I'm not having to find it, copy paste it, format it, just all right there. And it's an awesome sort of integration, if you will. Awesome stuff, Brandon. This is amazing stuff. Where can folks find you to say thanks?
I am on Twitter/X at Brandon Dove, and you can find AdSanity at AdSanity Plugin on X and Twitter.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for the rest of the live stream coming at you right here on the Gravity Forms YouTube channel. Dave Smith, welcome to a very special episode of Breakdown live streaming as we kick off the holiday season. I think a lot of folks on this channel know who you are, especially if you're a Breakdown podcast listener. You've been on the show many times. But for the uninitiated, who are you and what do you do in the Gravity Forms ecosystem?
Hey, I am Dave Smith over at Gravity Wiz. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably heard, hi, I'm Dave from Gravity Wiz. It's hard not to say it now. But yeah, I build add-ons for Gravity Forms over at Gravity Wiz, backed by an incredible team and my partner, Clay Griffiths. And yeah, that's a full-time gig these days.
You all have done site redesign. This is stuff I've talked about on the audio podcast before. You've recently gone through this sort of site redesign and bucketing your solutions into what I'll call three main marketable topics or marketable brands. Tell us the three and how it all stands these days.
Absolutely. So we have Gravity Perks, which is really focused on feature additions to Gravity Forms. We have Gravity Connect, which is all about integrating with Gravity Forms with some of the world's top services, Notion, OpenAI, and Google Sheets to start. And then we have Gravity Shop, which is looking to deeply explore how you can use Gravity Forms in the context of WooCommerce.
And today you're going to show off maybe one or two out of all of those things to show how people can take part in all of your solutions for Gravity Forms and beyond. It should be pretty exciting. I'm going to invite you to share your screen now. Folks, you definitely want to stick around and watch the entirety of this demonstration because it will be amazing. Not to put too much pressure on you, Dave. I know you're really a pro at this.
I love pressure. It's the only way I can thrive. If I don't have a deadline or a due date, I'm SOL.
It's like high school all over again, you know. Just wait for that book. Wait for that book report. Wait for the last hour.
Okay, so let's just kick this thing off again. Let me go over to my form here. I already have a little template built out, and we're gonna kind of build this, configure each of these fields to accomplish this end goal here. So again, no code needed. We're gonna build a lumber quoting system. And I guess the first step of this is this Google Sheet that I've cooked up. Did some deep research on lumber here. You can see that we have different types of wood and thicknesses and the price for each of that. And we're going to take this, we're going to dynamically populate it into a form. We're going to let the user select the type of lumber they want, the thickness of that lumber. And then we're going to get pricing directly from this sheet as well. And then we're going to use a couple other perks along the way to just really spice this up and make it as functional as possible. So again, first question is, how are we going to get this data into this form? Stage left here, we have Gravity Connect Google Sheets. So this lets you add data to Google Sheets, but in this case, we're actually going to be pulling data from Google Sheets. And pulling the data from the Google Sheet is going to actually be assisted by one of our flagship perks called Populate Anything. This is part of the Gravity Perks suite. So with those two out of the way, let's jump in to our form here. I've already done some of the legwork. I've already connected the sheet, so we have access to it. So on this type of lumber field, it's a drop-down field. We're going to go to populate choices dynamically. We're going to go down to the object type here. We're going to select Google Sheet. And then we're going to select our lumber prices sheet. And then here, we're going to select sheet 1. And at this point, we just want to decide what do we want to show from this spreadsheet in this field. In this case, it's going to be the name of the wood. And we have this preview results option right here, so you can see exactly what's going to be populated. So we're going to populate the value as the wood name and also the label. So then moving on to thickness, and let me zoom in a little bit here. I find that can make it a lot easier to see on screens. If we go to thickness, and we're going to do the same thing, populate choices dynamically, Google Sheet. We're going to select the lumber prices sheet again, and sheet 1. And then down here, we're going to go and we're going to say we want to populate the thickness in inches for the value, and that'll be important later. but then we want to display this thickness here. So let's look at what that is, and I'll explain a little bit. So you'll see that we're providing the thickness in inches as the value, because the calculation that we're going to do with this value later, it's going to want this value in inches, whereas a carpenter is going to actually be expecting to see this value in this format, which again, is the equivalent of an inch, for example, or a half inch, 2 inches, etc. So now that we have those two populating, the last thing we want to do on this field is we want to only show thicknesses that are available to the selected wood. So in that case, we're going to say, hey, wherever the name in this spreadsheet matches whatever the type of lumber selected in the form is. So that's filtering all the rows from the spreadsheet down to whatever is selected here, so that when it shows thicknesses, again, there'll only be the type of thicknesses that are available to the selected type of lumber. And then lastly, we're going to actually, instead of populating choices, populate anything can also just populate a value. So in this case, we're going to select Google Sheet again. We're going to go down to lumber prices, select that first sheet, and then we're going to select the price. And then the other thing we want to do here is that, again, we don't want to populate, the first price that it finds. We want to populate the price for the selected wood, so where the name equals type of lumber. And we're going to add another condition where the thickness in inches, because that's the value of this field, matches the thickness selected here. So now we're going to save the form. We're going to do a little early demo and just see how this works. So you can see that it's already dynamically populated these based on their default values. We're going to go in here and we're going to do white, oak. And then we're going to go down and we can see that there's two options here. We got 404 or 804. And then you can see how the price changes when we select that. So that's the meat and potatoes of using Google Sheets and Populate Anything to populate dynamic data and, again, drill down, allow the user to drill down by those populated options.
I want to just jump in for a second. For those watching, we are going to move pretty fast because you have a ton of stuff here that we're going to show off. But I want to just talk about unlocking that first layer of magic, no pun intended, that we've done here, or that you've done here through your add-ons. We're actually using, in this use case, we're actually using Google Sheets, and you correct me if I'm wrong. We're using Google Sheets as this sort of database, if you will, which is not inside of WordPress. And one would say, like, hey, if you're a freelancer and you're selling to your clients and you're like, yeah, I want you to put this stuff in WordPress. They're like, no way. I can't do this. Google Sheets I can handle. WordPress I can't. You could actually use this as your customer's like data inventory database. They could come in, they could adjust these things. And behind the scenes, your tools are actually pulling this data into WordPress to allow people to pull it into the Gravity forms. So do I have that magic layer fairly correct?
100%. And that's a very common use case that we see for this combination of products. WordPress can be just so intimidating for someone who's not using it every day. Abstracting that logic out of your actual form so that the customer, the client can manage it in this very simple spreadsheet interface is just such an approachable way. And then also you don't have to worry about them messing up your very carefully configured form.
And I just want to talk about the combination of your two products here. The Google Sheets product will just act as a way to send form data into Google Sheets if you want to populate that data into Gravity Forms. In other words, make that data available to Gravity Forms, you'll need the Populate Anything add-on, correct?
Yeah. Populate Anything will take whatever access you've granted through the Google Sheets plugin. We call them connections. And it will allow you to access any of that data in the Gravity Forms context, and specifically loading that data into form fields.
Cool.
All right. Moving along here, I am going to add in some classic Gravity Forms functionality. We're going to add placeholders here. So this will be select lumber type. And then we'll go down to thickness and do select thickness. Okay, so we have that whole thing set up. Now, the next part of this that I wanted to show you was the power of advanced select. We created this perk specifically because we wanted to enhance how the process of adding lots and lots of options to a dropdown. It can just be very overwhelming. In this case, we don't have too many options in here. It's a manageable dropdown, but just imagine that you start adding more and more types of lumber in there, and it could get overwhelming really quickly. So I already have Advanced Select enabled. I'm going to go ahead and enable it on this form. And then the other really cool thing about Advanced Select is that it adds this ability here called Lazy Load Populated Choices. This is available when you're using this in combination with Populate Anything. And this gives you like a huge performance boost because rather than running that query to ping the sheet every time the form loads, it only makes that request when they interact with the field. So again, let's just take a quick look at what this does to the UX. So we have this select lumber type, and as you can see there, it was really slow, or it was really quick, excuse me, but as we click this, it's gonna do that little circle and load. And now look at this little search ability here. So now you can find the exact word you're looking for much more quickly. Again, just such a nice UX touch for your customers or form users. All right, so now we have our price per foot, or per board foot, which I learned about this week. But then there's other values that they're going to have to enter, like board width in inches, the board length in feet, and then the number of boards that they want. And then we're going to have this calculation down here. This is a number field, and we have calculations enabled. And we have this little formula, which I'm going to replace now with actual merge text from this. So we're going to get the thickness times the board width. And then times the board length. And then that's going to be divided by 12. And then we're going to multiply that by the number of boards. And the whole point of this is that we're just trying to figure out how many board feet they require, or board feed, apparently. And that is going to let us calculate a total. Now, I'm just going to show you this in action really quick. Then we're going to come back and I'm going to tell you a little bit about advanced calculations. So let's preview this. We'll go in. We're going to select our white oak. We're going to select this 4x4 width, our thickness. So now we can see that our price per board is $10. We're going to say we want 12-inch wide boards, each one at 10 feet, and we're going to get 10 of them. And you're going to see that gives us, we need 100 board feet. So last thing there is going to be creating this product here where we are going to multiply the number of boards by, board feet required. Multiply that by the price that we again fetched directly from the Google Sheet. And that will give us our final total. So let's do this one more time here. White oak. 4x4, 12, 10, 10, boom. So we have our quote ready for them, and we can even give that field better name. So now, again, I just want to give you a couple little pro tips here. Let's say with this project that you want to bake in a maybe 15 to 20% kind of buffer for them, because when you're working with wood, it's not like when you're working with the digital world where you can just scrap it and just repeat for free, essentially. With boards, you're going to need extra boards. And so we can take this whole calculation, and this is where it's going to be really cool to see advanced calculations at work. And let me show you that really quick. That's this bad boy right here. Gives you conditional statements, which we're about to use right now. And I'm also going to show you about formula shorthand. So we hop over here. I've just copied that function that we had. We're going to add in a conditional first and say, hey, if X condition is true, then we're going to use this formula here, and we're going to multiply it by 20%. And we're going to say that condition is that, hey, if the number of boards is greater than 12, or actually, excuse me, let's say less than 12. If it's a smaller project, we're going to assume they need a greater margin of error. Then we're going to add 20% to that. And otherwise, we'll add 15%. So now you can see that we have this condition in here, and you just have one field. Now, full disclosure, you could do this without advanced calculations with just core gravity forms. You could just have two separate calculation fields and then use conditional logic to show and hide the appropriate calculation. Our customers have just found that this is just a nice ability to keep your forms simple. If you've been building forms for any length of time, you know, every time you add a field to the form, it just makes it that much harder to manage it in the future. Remember that each field's purpose. Remember how the conditional logic is configured. So if you can, condense as much logic as possible into a single field, you'll find that it makes the form management a lot easier in the future. And then the last thing I'm going to do here is, this is a lot to read. And I want to show you really quick our shorthand. So you just do F8 for that one. It's just a field ID, F3, F6. And I'm just literally pulling in those field IDs right there. And then F8. So now you can really focus on the math in the formula versus trying to parse through all those merge tags. And if we go here, we can do the same thing. And again, we'll adjust that back to the 15. And if you hover over it, you can always see what that value refers to. It will pull in the field label. Awesome.
When you were selecting those IDs, were you doing a keyboard command, or were you just actually typing in F3, F6, F7? If so, can somebody just do that? Type in F3, F6, F7?
Yeah, you can just type in anything. And in fact, it's, I was telling Clay, my partner, as I was doing this demo, I realized that we really need to add autocomplete for that capital F to make that even easier.
Yeah, because that's what was going on in my head right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you always can fake it in the demo.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the calculation. And before we go and demo this one more time, let's actually update this to lumber cost as our field there. And worth noting, we could do the same logic here as far as the F9 and F5. And we'll save the form. Live preview. All right. White oak, 4 out of 4. 12, 10, 10. You know what I did? This is gonna make it so much easier though. I need to multiply this by 1 point those numbers to get the accurate count there. And since you can already kind of see this in play, rather than re-entering all that information again, I'm gonna show you the last little section of this demo where I am going to set up the confirmation page for this. So if you're using a static confirmation page, it's kind of temporary, right? They either are going to see something generic if you link to a page, or they're going to see something that is specific to their entry, but only available for that first submission. And then if they try to come back to that in the future, they'll just see the form again. So what if you want to make a permanent confirmation page that they could always come back and see what they submitted? And that's exactly what post content merge tags lets you do. Probably should come up with a more interesting name for this, but it was in my early days before I transitioned to being a marketer. So confirmation, we're going to go to the page here. We're going to select this page, lumber quote. I already have this set up, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. And down here, we're going to go to post content merge tags. I'm going to click enable merge tags and page content. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then we can click this link, and it'll take us over to our lumber quote. So this page is just a regular old WordPress page. And once you've enabled the post content merge tags, you're going to see that there's this icon available where you can go in and you can select any merge tag that's available to the form for which this is enabled. And in this case, just to save time, I've already gone through and added all these merge tags. This is just a table block, part of the block editor, and I've added these labels in. And you can see I've just gone in and added each merge tag for each of the corresponding fields that I wanted to show in this. And then down here, I just have a ready to buy, call us today kind of thing. And so now, I think I already said that. Yes, I did. So now we go here. Let's refresh it because we want to get an accurate quote. I know how important that is to people. We go to that. I'm just going to fly through this. You can't tell I've submitted this quite a few times in my testing. And now we're going to go ahead and submit this. And when we submit this, it's going to redirect us to this page. You're going to note up here, there's this EID parameter, and this generates a unique code to identify that submitted entry. So they could submit multiple times, and each time it would give them a unique code. So then they could always come back to this confirmation page and have access to the data that was previously submitted. You can see this is actually from my original demo form. So that's why some of these merge tags aren't being replaced. I just made this form from scratch. But I think this effectively shows you the option here. And then again, there's like a nice little call to action at the bottom. And we mentioned that it's only good for 3 days. So you have all your bases covered in case lumber prices go up dramatically. And that's pretty much it.
That's fantastic. The post content merge tags, how does that differ from your other add-on, which I'm going to forget the name of it right now, which allows one to display content inside of the Gravity Forms entries database?
So you're thinking about entry blocks.
Entry blocks.
Yeah, and entry blocks is a much more robust solution. It could technically solve the same problem. I would say that if you're just looking for an easy way to have permanent confirmation pages, post-content merge tags is definitely going to be the much easier solution. But I will say, I mean, just one thing that's awesome about, Gravity Wiz and Gravity Perks is that there are often multiple ways to solve the problem. And you can actually pick the specific tool that solves it the best based on the requirements of that current project that you're working on.
Yeah. Because this one, you're like the workflow here is you build the page in WordPress, the confirmation page, right?
Yep.
You can style it however you want. It's not,
Absolutely.
it doesn't have to be in the little default confirmation text area field that we have in Gravity Forms. You go to the page, you build it out, you put in these merge tags, and the logic behind the scenes says, hey, when you load this page, these merge tags are going to be replaced with the actual data the user just submitted to the form.
Yep. And just as a quick addition to that, look, you can see how easy it is right there. I'll just add the all fields that you just talked about. That's the kind of default Gravity Forms way of showing everything. We refresh this page and it's updated, which is, again, another benefit of this approach is that if you want to change the template in the future, you can just go and edit the page, and all of those links that people are using to access these pages are automatically going to update to that new template.
Yeah, that's a pretty slick approach for that. Customers managing, that inventory, the information, data, name, price, all in Google Sheets, sort of drops the barrier to entry for your end user, especially if you're a freelancer or an agency helping customers. It dramatically drops that barrier to entry. They can maintain it there and manage it there. Of course, you probably want to have like some kind of backup form for that because, things could break pretty easily. That is one question.
Absolutely.
That is one question I have for you. Where have you ever hit the limitations of this populate anything, pulling out of a Google Sheets, load time, update time? Like, where have you seen the limits really pushed for that connection?
I want to say it's somewhere like around like 1 million rows is where we start to say like, hey, you might start to see like some performance degradation there. But it's you could do a lot. Most people do not come anywhere near even like a slowdown. Yeah,
that is pretty fantastic. One day we're going to get you back on to talk about the ChatGPT stuff that we've been talking about behind the scenes because I've actually, there are other people in this program in the No Code event that have shown off some of the cool stuff that they've done with your ChatGPT add-on so that they can, take the user submitted data, do the thing with ChatGPT and then show some kind of result. But man, really can start to see some of this power unlock if you're, saving some ChatGPT stuff to another database offsite from WordPress, then you're pulling it into a form for users to recover. There's a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. If you're looking for some other good examples, we did a Notion workshop recently, Gravity Connect Notion, which used Gravity Connect OpenAI to do a preliminary assessment of the quality of the candidate that was being submitted. As well as just summarizing their resume so you could have like a quick overview of what you're about to get into. Some really cool stuff. And also Cole, our #1 most excellent marketing wizard at Gravity Wiz, he's going to be coming on during the No Code Needed series What is this called?
It's just a special event. We might do more of these in the future. We'll see.
Yes. Well, he's going to come on during the special event, and he is actually going to be focusing on Gravity Connect OpenAI. So definitely tune in for that.
Fantastic stuff. Dave, where can folks go to say thanks?
GravityWiz.com. We're on all the socials for GravityWiz. Yeah, Google will lead you to us.
Hey, Alex, thanks for joining today's special Black Friday stream. It's called the No Code event, No Code Needed event. You know why No Code Needed? Because if you go to gravityforms.com, you can get a discounted license across all of our tools and software, 50% off. Black Friday, no code needed. You just buy it with no code. There's nothing else you have to enter in. It's just there. It's a magical way of experiencing the holiday season. That's the way I see it anyway. I don't know about you. I don't know if you're stacking the deck with any software and products this holiday season, but it's a great time to be in WordPress. Who are you and what do you do these days in WordPress?
My name is Alex Standiford, and I am a developer and marketing automation specialist.
Awesome. You have a range of products and services that you have to offer. I had you on the show a little while ago, but you got something new that you're working on. What is it that you're going to show off or at least talk about today? We're not doing a hands-on demo. You're going to talk about how you've leveraged Gravity Forms in your stuff. What is it that you're working on?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have right now is one of my clients needed a quote tool to handle a custom approach to quoting. So as you know, Gravity Forms already has plenty of features that allows it to do totals, like total calculations and things like that. But what they needed was a little more specific than what that tool could do. So I created a Gravity Forms integration that creates a custom field for them that adds the support, but allows them to continue to use Gravity Forms and all of the integrations that comes with it.
Fantastic. The features of Gravity Forms has, like you mentioned, like it has the calculation field. How did you, just from like the high level perspective, I think there'd probably be a mix of people who are developers watching this, non-developers watching this. Did you create like your own custom add-on to do this, or were you like working in, I don't know, like snippets of code into Gravity Forms? Break it down to how like you implemented that.
Sure. So this was built as a custom add-on. The details of it is basically they needed it to be able to say sometimes the quote is valid and sometimes it isn't valid. So to do that, we had to add this custom integration with some database things and some other logic. But basically, it's created as a separate add-on. So basically, there's a couple custom fields that work inside of Gravity Forms that we registered and added directly to it. And then on top of that, we added a custom merge tag. So whenever the email is sent, it automatically can create the quote URL using the data from the submission. And then whenever they click on that URL, it takes them to the quote page. And then in that moment, it calculates their actual quote using the data from the submission. So it kind of works kind of like how Gravity Forms does it by default, but it doesn't quite, but it works a little bit differently.
Sure.
And one of the things that's really cool about how we set it up is we actually integrated all of the total calculations and things like that Gravity Forms does now. And we set it up to where the quote, the total, and the value is actually based on the submission data. So it actually includes that data into figuring out the calculation and all of that stuff. So we were able to leverage a lot of that complexity and give our client a whole lot of flexibility in how this quote works, along with, the extra things that they needed on top of it.
And they get the quote in just like an HTML email. Is that where they get the quote, or is it like on the page and they can log in and access that afterwards?
Yeah. So the way that works is it's an email and then there's a link, and it's like a special link with like a big old query string at the end of it. And if you click on that link, it takes them to the quote page that was actually designed in Elementor, that they we're designing with them, but they're able to now update it, change it, and do all the things that they need to do with it. But the data related to the amount of money that it costs for the quote and things like that varies based on the submission itself. So we're kind of we're taking the information from the submission and we're using that to actually determine what displays on the quote page itself.
That's awesome. Any thoughts on like extending that? Has the client asked like, okay, like maybe we need quote revisions, maybe we can have the customer log in, see the quote, and maybe send us like another Gravity form that asks like some like follow-up questions or additional stuff? Anything on the horizon for that customer?
Yeah. So the first thing, of course, that comes to mind is just more. They want more calculation, nuance, and more capabilities and things like that. But honestly, everything you're talking about is why we started from the beginning. We said this should be a Gravity Forms integration, because we could have rolled this on our own. We could have built the form and done all that stuff without Gravity Forms. But the big reason why we wanted to use Gravity Forms for this is because it allows them. Because one, they were already a Gravity Forms user, but two, it allowed them to integrate with the systems that they already have in place. So they're using, like different mail automation systems, and they have their own CRM set up that whenever a form is submitted through Gravity Forms, it's automatically connecting to those things and doing those actions. They still wanted to maintain that stuff, but they also wanted to be able to actually create this quote experience for the client. So I guess if there was the one thing that comes to mind for me that is probably going to be coming in the future is going to be providing more of those quote details, the results of the quote inside of their CRM and stuff like that. Like the data that's being submitted from Gravity Forms is coming in, but it isn't necessarily being parsed and being like provided inside of those different actions. But again, Gravity Forms is definitely doable. It's all built into those integrations. There's actions that you can hook into to add and inject data as you need. So there's plenty of room to be able to handle that kind of stuff.
It's another play on the no code needed, right? Because a lot of the stuff with Gravity Forms is almost like a no code builder. I mean, tongue in cheek, you can download these add-ons and start patching stuff together. But extending it actually needs some additional code, if you will. I'll put you on the hot seat for a second. Are you using Gravity SMTP to send those emails with the quotes and the information in it?
It's really funny you bring that up, because actually just last week, this client actually just messaged me and they were like, hey, I've got this problem where sometimes my emails aren't being sent and I don't know why. And I had to have the conversation explaining like, oh, that's probably because you're not using any kind of SMTP solution. You're probably just using WP Mail, WordPress's default mail client that comes with the server. Sometimes it doesn't send. Usually you're okay for a little while, but once you start to scale and you start to get leads in any kind of consistent way, all of a sudden you're going to start seeing those drop sometimes. And actually, I literally just mentioned to her, like, Gravity has that solution.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. We didn't chat about this in the green room. This is totally off the cuff, but certainly a solution like that, that's where my mind goes immediately, for the deliverability of those emails. And you as a consultant, sure, these places like SendGrid and Breville, they have these dashboards you can log into and see the logs and stuff like that. But now it's going to bring that data, surface that data right into WordPress for the client and for you. It makes your life a little bit easier. So when they say, hey, a customer said they didn't get the quote, I don't know where it is. One, you can direct them right to the dashboard of WordPress and say, hey, do you see an error message that says that email didn't go through? And perhaps there's some other information there that says why it didn't go through. And, life can be a little bit easier, and peace of mind that your customer is getting those emails sent out appropriately. So that's awesome stuff. That's why we love Gravity Forms. It's why we love the ecosystem of Gravity Forms for all the stuff that you're doing with your business. So fantastic stuff. Alex, where can folks go to say thanks?
Sure. You can find me at www.alexstandiford.com. I have a plethora of different social media platforms that I'm on at this point, and it seems to be growing every week. But you can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on Twitter, Mastodon, all those things. But everything I publish, everything I talk about, including all my marketing automations, my quizzes, all that stuff it can all be found through my site. Everything ends up going through there eventually. So literally everything is there.
Awesome stuff. Alex, thanks for hanging out today.
Heck yeah. My pleasure. Thanks.
Hey, Mike, welcome to the special Gravity Forms No Code Needed event this holiday season. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, glad to be here.
What do you do here at Gravity Forms? I see you passing. We pass each other in the hallways. What do you do?
Yeah, so I am the community and partnership lead here for Gravity. And that basically means that I get to talk to all of the outside companies that we work with, whether we've built integrations together through our community add-on section, or where they've built it for us, or our native integrations as well, managing those relationships, as well as getting to communicate with some of our developers in that community add-on section, or our certified developers as well.
I don't want to detract from all the heady thinking that you do here at Rocket Genius, but you're also our MC at WordCamp events. And my God, without you, no one would be getting their Lego sets or their free licenses. It's a talent.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, that would be bad. I think there would be uproar in the streets if those Lego sets and free licenses and other giveaways were not available to our wonderful customers and those interested in joining us in the Gravity Forms universe. That talent, as you call it, comes from a previous life where I was a teacher for a while, actually, and we call it the teacher voice. The ability to boom out across a wide room without having to necessarily scream at people. So
I want to go.
I can bring my talents here to Gravity. Yeah,
I want to go under the hood of what it's like to be this sort of like community wrangler here at Gravity Forms and working with other folks in the WordPress space. Just like thinking like strategies and tactics for when we're at WordCamps. I think this is important for anyone who's watching, who's actually, interior to the WordPress community, right? You're working at you're a person watching this, working at another WordPress shop, working at an agency, finding value in connecting with others at WordCamps. Do you have a particular strategy? I mean, I kind of know it because I work here, but what's your particular strategy when you meet with somebody at a WordCamp? There's just so much stuff going on and time is limited. So how do you go into these meetings and partnership events trying to get the most out of it?
Yeah, great question. The first thing that I do is be ready for long days and pack a couple of power bars and a lot of water. If things go well, if things go the way we want, I'm in meetings for 8 or 9 straight hours, which sounds bad, but in all reality, obviously is really good, especially post-COVID, but just in general with this very distributed and remote environment that we're all in. The ability to get together with people face-to-face is so rare, does not happen very often. And I treat these events like WordCamps that we go to with a lot of reverence for that reason. It's so great, and I so appreciate getting to see these people that I've likely already met on a Zoom call or just through emails in person. One of the first things I want to make sure is a priority is actually getting to know them, getting to know a bit more about how long they've been where they are and what their priorities are, both personally in their role as well as obviously for the business or company that they're working with or for. Because if anything in a partnership environment or just two companies collaborating is going to be worthwhile, it's got to be genuine. And I do think that's super important. And that genuine feeling comes from both just the relationship, but also, and literally not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. As you get to have those face-to-face conversations and talk about where your companies and their company's priorities are at, figuring out how to make that relationship work in a meaningful way is probably the number one most important thing. And then, doing that on repeat as much as you can to take advantage of the time that you have together.
How do you process the last technical question? And we'll go into your unique presentation today. How do you process the I'll follow up period of a meeting, right? Once again, fast paced. I had a bunch of meetings at WordCamps. I'll just share what I do. I use an app called Todoist. And as I'm in that meeting, chatting with folks, I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I'm going to punch these things down because I will forget it 5 minutes from now. Like if I don't write it down in Todoist, I'm going to forget it, especially as I'm meeting people and going through these events. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? Do you have pen and paper? Like how do you actually schedule these follow-ups and how do you organize that?
Yeah, great question. It's probably one of two things, depending on the battery level of the computer I have with me. I use an app called Bear or Bear Notes, and I make a new note for every meeting that I have, and just keep them in like a WordCamp folder. And then ideally, in a gap in meetings, I'll try to take that and consolidate it into words that actually make sense rather than what you're able to type while you're having the meeting, and make it into action items. Barring that, at the end of the day, I make a point to go through and do that with all those individual notes. Otherwise, I found I use essentially a pen and paper. I got a Remarkable tablet a while back. Really enjoy that. I do like writing notes by hand, even if not a single other person on the planet can read them. But I found that helps me feel more engaged in the meeting too, where I don't have a real screen between us. The ability to write down at least the action items for who we met with, and what I want to make sure I follow up on next time I'm sitting at my actual desk rather than out and about at the events.
Yeah, I'm a huge Bear fan as well. I use it for writing. I don't use it for like the productivity stuff, but for like drafting blog posts and such.
Sure, yeah.
Huge fan. Mike, I'm going to give you a chance to click the share screen button in the middle lower section of the screen. You have an interesting presentation today. We're going to talk about some of the partners and certified developers and the wide universe of Gravity Forms, those who you might be interacting with on a daily, if not monthly basis here at Gravity Forms.
So my favorite thing about Gravity Forms is the ecosystem that surrounds it. Gravity Forms has been around a long time in the WordPress space, and as a result, we've got a wonderful ecosystem full of developers that are ready and willing and able to make great things to add even more functionality on top of such a great product that already exists. So the first ones I'm going to show you in that ecosystem are here. And they are our certified add-ons made by our certified developers. So right from within the product, we have a handy little add-ons browser here that lets you see all of our official add-ons that are first party, but also next to that is this great tab for our certified add-ons. And certified add-ons are not made by us. They're not Gravity Forms created, but they're created by third-party developers that we know and we trust, and we've seen them spend years creating excellent products, and as a result, they're a part of this certified developer program. So companies like Gravity Wiz, Gravity Kit, Cosmic Giant, GF Chart, Gravity PDF, and Jet Sloth all kind of encompass this system, and they all just make wonderful things. So that's the first part of this ecosystem, and on top of that, we have another collection of developers that we call our community add-ons. And these community developers with these community add-ons do even more. And they are also great quality products created for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it's an agency that sees a need for a client for an added functionality that we don't have yet. So they create an add-on here. The process, if you're interested in creating a community add-on and posting it here on our site, is really simple. There's just a register an add-on drop down here. You fill out a form and tell us about what you're doing. It goes through a quick review, and then we're able to post it here for other Gravity Forms users to use. So, and the selection is wide. They cover all sorts of things from the simple to the complex. One of my favorite ones that I use as an example is there exists a community add-on for auto-populating zip codes in the UK, which makes perfect sense, but not something I would have thought of right away. And clearly there's a need for it. And it ranges and fills the gambit between that as well. So that is easily one of my favorite parts of Gravity Forms.
Yeah, I mean, just to get a little plug for the podcast that I do at Breakdown, not only do I get to interview these certified developers, who I might also add, like, these are folks, you know, as you stated, like, we know them, we work with them, but they work really close with like the core team of Gravity Forms. We meet up with them. Like, there's a strong connection there. It's not just like, it's very easy in the WordPress space to kind of just like dismiss that as like it's just affiliate play or something like that. Like, this is totally different. But on the Breakdown podcast, not only have I interviewed certified developers, community developers, there's tons of folks out in the Gravity Forms world that are building add-ons that are just distributed on GitHub, right? They just make these little utility plugins. They're not trying to make a business out of it. They're just like little helper plugins that help the community of Gravity Forms. That's awesome to see. And then there's folks building stuff that are on WordPress.org that can be installed right from your WordPress dashboard. Not sort of like air quotes sanctioned by Gravity Forms, but these are great developers. They're building cool things. And again, not these big commercial interests, but to help the overall user base of Gravity Forms, which is so large, they sort of tap into that. And it's awesome to see. It's fantastic stuff. I love all of the certified developers, and all the community plugins are great. Countless times I've found stuff that I need on some random project, and it's already built. So I turn to the team and I'm like, hey guys, why don't we have this? And then somebody who's been here for 20 years, I was like, oh, because somebody already built that and we know about it and we've been using it forever. So that's really cool.
It is super cool. Yeah, definitely cool to be a part of something that is so long standing that it's got a dedicated following of people that are in the same mindset, that just want the product to be as good as it can be and want to help contribute to that in whatever way that they can that's helpful.
Mike Smith, thanks for hanging out today. This is the No Code Needed special holiday season of Gravity Forms. Head on over to gravityforms.com. Get your license 50% off. No code needed. No pun intended. Or no, I guess the pun is intended in this case.